Let's take a look at Tuesday in the NBA. There were only 5 games on, but we did get some interesting performances. We got some big performances. We got some weird rotations. It's all here. Michael Bolton, he was excited.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I've met the best by which. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, so go ahead and double bang it. Hit the thumb up, hit the bell, hit the subscribe, and of course, leave your comments down below. Fantasy playoffs are rockin' rollin'. We're flying through them, and we're still here talking everything that we need to talk about the old fantasy basketball. So what happened? What happened across the day? Let's take a look. It is the Tuesday recap. God, get my days right. Let's look at some news up first. Kevin Huerter suffered a shoulder dislocation. I think you could just rule him out for the regular season. That's 4 more weeks, bit less than 4 weeks. We've had 2 shoulder dislocations recently. Julius Randle, I don't know if that man's coming back ever. Josh Richardson's officially out for the season. On Randle, if you want to drop, I reckon you probably can. I just don't know when he's coming back, but Huerter's not coming back anytime soon, so you move on from him. And he was bad anyway, so we don't need to be holding on to Kevin Huerter. The guy that is going to start in his place is going to be Keon Ellis. Now, Ellis can be iffy with shooting. He's a very, very, very low usage player, but the man's averaging, I think, over 3 blocks per 100 possessions, and close to like over 3 steals per 100 possessions, and like 1.7, 1.8 blocks per 100 possessions, which is a guard, is Derek White stuff. It's higher level than Derek White. And you get 30 minutes, 2 steals, 0.8 blocks. It's possible. A little bit of value there. And they've got a good schedule. We did get some updates from some of the tanking teams. Lauri Markkanen's out on Wednesday. Of course, he's came back for 1 game, sits the next one. It is a back-to-back. I believe he will play Thursday. My thing all along has been, I reckon he's got 4 to 5 more games in him. And then the quad, it's just going to be too painful. So we'll see what happens there, but he is out, so we'll get a better opportunity for Bryce Sensabaugh, better opportunity for usage for Keontae and for Sexton, more opportunity for Taylor Hendricks. Johnny Collins is questionable after getting a finger through the sinus zone from Anthony Edwards in that dunk attempt. I say dunk attempt because it went in, but he didn't dunk it. You know what I mean? So that's John Collins, maybe playing, maybe not. Jeremy Grant, the Ides of March. He's doubtful again with the hamstring injury. Look, we are getting to that stage where it's comical now as how little Jeremy Grant plays in March. It's actually the joke. Does he play again? I'll put him in the Lauri Markkanen camp. I reckon he's got 4 more in him. Where they come, I don't know. But we can safely... He's not good enough to hold through the bullshit, which is where Jeremy Grant sits at the moment. Then we've got Grizzlies updates. Vince Williams doubtful again. Basically the same guys out as it was last game. So no Kennard, no Watanabe, no Stevens, but everyone else is available, who is expected to be available. Their 10-day guys, which one was Wenyen Gabriel, that's expired. He's not on the team anymore. And DeJon Jarreau's 10-day is going to expire today. So he won't be available for tomorrow. Now, they could sign DeJon Jarreau to a second 10-day, or that might mean that they literally have to play Jordan Goodwin minutes. Because last game they just played DeJon Jarreau, terrible name to say. They played Jarreau the 15 or so backup minutes, but he literally might not be on the roster tomorrow. Again, that matters to nobody because it's going to be Conchar and Bane that start in the backcourt almost 100%. There was a new addition to the injury report for the Grizzlies in Santi Aldama with an elbow issue. The big one is going to be Friday. Who is going to be out for them on Friday against the Spurs? I can't wait. Donovan Mitchell, knee 100% completely fine, but now he's had the procedure for his nasal fracture. He's out at least a week, and we are in, obviously, if your playoffs end this week, you drop Donovan Mitchell, unfortunately.
Get that garbage out of here!
If your playoffs end next week, well, that gets a little bit iffy, doesn't it? He's got this knee problem for sure. He said he had a knee problem. He said he was going to take it easy and see what happens back in April. So I don't know. We are at a stage where if your playoffs are starting this week, that I wouldn't drop Don, but you've got to start discussing it or thinking about it. And if they end at the end of week 22, you might only get like 2 games at the end of the week. Now, of course, you can always slot in IL, but there are ways that you can use that IL in different scenarios. I'm not telling you to drop Don. I probably wouldn't have the stones to do it, but we've got to start having that discussion. Duncan Robinson with a back injury. Talked about that yesterday, how he left the game, and I said, look, I don't think he's good enough with uncertainty around his health moving forward to hold on. He now has gone back to Miami to check with a back specialist. So, John,
Get that garbage out of here.
yeah, you move on. Now, there's still no Tyler Hero. Huckers doesn't really play at the 2. Caleb Martin doesn't really play at the 2, although Martin is still the guy I prefer over Huckers. But then what do you do? It's Pat Mills, DeLon Wright. It's pretty rough. So, yeah, I would definitely be looking at Caleb Martin there. I wouldn't look massively into Huckers. I still would a little bit, but he's just a very low upside type of a player, I think, at this point in his career. Who are the trends in the waiver wire? Who's been added? Who's been dropped? Let's take a look. The most added player is Trey Mann, up 13%. I'm going to guess that's just a stream today, considering now they don't play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 3 days off, so you drop him after that. Delano Banton, one of the most added players. I wish I knew what Delano Banton was doing every game. But it's all over the shop. No problem with streaming him in. John Isaac had been putting up some really good defensive numbers. They had a real blowout win today. Dracaris Levert, yes, add him everywhere. With Strus still out, with Mitchell still out, with Mobley still out, with Wade still out, you got to go with Levert. He might shoot 27% from the field, but you got to go with him. Taylor Hendricks up 11%. Markkanen out, good value. It's going to be up and down for Hendricks, but I think eventually it will just stay up. And then Dylan Brooks, one of the most added players today. We'll talk about how that one went a little bit later on. The most dropped players, easy ones here. Duncan Robinson down 12%, move on. Isaiah Stewart down 10%, hurt his hamstring, shouldn't have been rusted anyway, but move on, like he's not playing this week. Bilal Coulibaly is out for the year, down 7%. OG Anunoby down 5%. I think that's fair enough. He's probably not playing the next game. Look, maybe he returns one after that. And if you're not in desperation stakes, you don't have to make that move. But I also get it. They've got a pretty poor schedule. And there's flaring up stuff here. There's also something completely nasty from the New York Mint. I don't like using that word. It's a weird word, nasty. It just doesn't sound right. But there was a report that OG is going to miss his time. So according to people familiar with his tenure in Toronto, OG Anunoby doesn't like playing with pain. Like, what are you insinuating? That he's soft? You are, yeah? That's ridiculous. Like, that's just insane. The man just had elbow surgery. He's soft. Anyway, I don't know when OG is going to be available. It is a toss-up, but given how it's reacted or how his elbow's reacted to returning, I think he's going to be a little bit in and out here, even if he does return early. Paul Washington down 4%. Probably would have waited for PJ because he was playing today and he plays Thursday. It's not a terrible schedule. But obviously you can move on because of a 2-game week, but I might have waited. Well, Matisse Thybulle down 4%. He missed a game, came back, played 5 minutes, left that early. He's questionable for the game tomorrow. But, you know, with that level of uncertainty around his ankle and the fact that he's Matisse Thybulle, the upside's low, I wouldn't necessarily be holding on and hoping that we get some big stuff out of the big fella, the painter, Matisse Thybulle. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That is what brings home that winning fantasy championship. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether it's speed or power or style that you're into, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. Well, not 122 million parts for your specific ride or die, but 122 million parts to cover everyone's number one ride or die. You'll find exactly what you're looking for at eBay. With eBay Guaranteed Fit as well, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. Do you call your car your ride? Well, this ad keeps saying ride. Like, hey, gonna jump in my ride. I don't know. I don't say it. Doesn't matter. Who cares? We've got games that we got to talk about. Why wouldn't we talk about them? the first game up was what was it? It was the Houston Rockets taking on the Washington Wizards. So, any lineup changes? Well, there was. Justin Champagnie, who'd been playing awesome, moved to the bench so that bust legend John Davis could start. Now, that's annoying. They obviously have more invested in Davis, though. So they gave him the opportunity. And he started. And we'll see how that went. The Rockets win this easily. 137-114 is your final score. Let's talk about the fact that people added Dylan Brooks yesterday. He had 2 points on 14% with 1 rebound in 23 minutes. Possibly one of the worst streams you could have done. And he has had increased opportunity. It has led him to be the 251st ranked player over the last 2 weeks. And I think we can jack.
Get that garbage out of here!
It's worth remembering that when you play against Washington and everybody is out, you can do amazing things. Jalen Green dropped 42 points with 10 rebounds. He hit 7 triples. He had a steal and a block. He got to the line 13 times. He had 85%. He was 57 from the field. He dominated. He's on a really strong stretch here, Jalen. It's been a tough year for sure, but he's on a massive stretch and we love that. And with Şengün out, he's doing a lot more. We also finally got 30 minutes of Amen Thompson. In fact, we got 32. Amen Thompson's ability to just not miss a shot is not something I never thought. It's because, again, you're playing against this team with no interior or perimeter defense, the Wizards. So he had 83% shooting. 25 and 10 for Amen. Only 2 assists but a block. Really putting up strong numbers, and the minutes were finally up in this one. Jabari Smith, 18 and 14. We love that. But what about old mate Jock Landale? Now, the minutes I don't love. He had 20 of them only. Just a casual 7 blocks in 20 minutes. He had 10 and 3. Now, there will be a lot of people that look at this game and chase adding Jock Landale. I would look at this and go, he still only played under 20 minutes, 19 minutes, 45 seconds. Jeff Green still played 18 and 7 blocks is against this nonsense garbage team. I don't think I would, as much as I was, when Landale played 26, I thought it was interesting for 12s. In 20, absolutely no way. Don't chase this, would be my guess. Everyone was good in this one, but Fred VanVleet wasn't. 7 points on 27%. He did have 11 assists, 2 steals and a block, but a pretty rough overall output there. In saying that, he's still the 12th ranked player over the last 2 weeks, so can't complain too much. Not much else going on there. The big questions are going to be in Washington, though. No Tyus Jones, no Kyle Kuzma, no Denny Avdia, no Marvin Bagley, no Bilal, obviously, no Landry Shamet, no Eugene Amari. So Champagnie came off the bench. He played 31 minutes. 16 and 8, 2 steals and 2 threes. That's really good. Is there 31 minutes available for him every night? Now, he can't play every night. I think he can play 9 of their remaining 16 games or 9 of their remaining 13 games, or whatever's left. Yes, this is great. There's so much to look at in this game. But Jones, Kuzma, Avdia, Bagley, are they all just going to be out every game? I doubt that. So yeah, that's interesting to try Champagnie. But I don't think it's going to be every night. Kispert, I still think gets the priority. Kispert's a nothing. He's a points and threes guy. 16 with 4 dribbles. That's nothing. He doesn't do anything else. And that can have value. But I think he still gets prioritized over Champagnie. And then the guy who started, this guy, he stinks. If I was the Wizards, I know they've already picked it up. I would have declined his 3rd-year option. I'd actually just cut him. What's he doing? You have to decline his 4th year. 2 points, 27 minutes, 14%. He stinks. Speaking of stinking, Jordan Poole shot 28%. He did have 13, 5, and 2, so it's not a terrible line, but it's not ideal. While Pat Baldwin would have been actually on the way to a pretty good line. He had 4 fouls in about the first 8 minutes. He ended up the sandwich. He played only 21 minutes. He ended with 5 fouls. We had 12 and 7, 1 3, 1 steal. I think Pat Baldwin Jr. is going to be a 12-team league player at some point this season. And that's the last 2 games. Look, if he wasn't in foul trouble, it's a clear 12-team line. The last game, if he shot better than 10%, it's a 12-team line. The pieces are there. I'm not saying that you need to add him, and him versus Champagnie is a bit borderline as to which one I want. I think Baldwin probably has the higher overall upside, but Champagnie's just getting it done more at the moment. I think they're both going to be 12-team options at some point. We're just figuring out when. But there's other options on this team too. We'll talk Rashawn Holmes. He had 12 and 9, steal and a block. Cool. While Bagley's out, that's good enough. It's low upside, but it's good enough. But there's 2 other names. 20,000 Leagues legend Jules Bernard had 16, 2, and 4. Now, he only played 19 minutes, so I go, that's okay, right? I'm watching it. But I'm also watching Jared Butler, a guy that's had really good fantasy translations most of his career. Remember, he had the heart issue coming out of Baylor. He's been bouncing around on the Thunder for a bit. Now he's here. He's on a 2-way. He's been on a 2-way all year. He played 31 minutes. He had 15, 3 and 9 on 37% shooting. This is one that we need to watch just in case Jones, Kuzma don't return. Yeah, the guys we're watching are Champagny, it's Butler, Baldwin. They're the ones that we're watching. Kispert, I think, is an ad for now. You can try those others, but I'm not fully convinced as where their value sits. Still don't have Vukcevic available. I think it's not happening until April, even though he's around. I don't think he's going to be playing until maybe the last week of the season, old Tristan. So just don't get overly excited about that one. Now, this is the time where I wish that I could play the song, but I can't. So, Orlando Magic. They win. And they clinch themselves a play-in berth. 41 victories. Wow. 112-92 over the Charlotte Hornets. Let's talk Hornets. Davis Bertans was scoreless, got ejected after 9 minutes. Hey, maybe that was the worst stream option for today. Well, was it Grant Williams who had 5 points in 23 minutes? Is LaMelo Ball dead? Is he ever returning? I don't know. What I do know is that Vasily Micic did everything. 20 points in 27 minutes on 80% shooting with 1 rebound, 1 assist, and 1 steal. And now you get rid of him.
Get that garbage out of here.
People added Trey Mann. He had 11, 5, and 5. And now you get rid of him.
Get that garbage out of here.
Brandon Miller had 21 and 7 in 32 minutes, but yet again, inefficient. And you know what you do with Brandon Miller?
Get that garbage out of here.
And I know this is controversial, but Miles Bridges had 16 points. He had 5 assists. Get rid of him.
Get that garbage out of here.
Maybe. Now, obviously, for this week, there is no value in holding on to Bridges and Miller. None whatsoever. If you are in a league that ends this week, they are gone immediately. The thing is, they then move into an interesting schedule, a better schedule, into the following weeks where they've got 4 games each. The problem there lies is that the schedules in those weeks become absolutely smelly. Like disgustingly bad. Because we've got all of these high volume days. So, for example, in that week, week 22, the Hornets do play 4 games on a high volume Monday, a high volume Wednesday, a high volume Friday, a high volume Sunday, meaning they have 0 quality games. So while they've got 2 games this week, is Brandon Miller actually playing at a level good enough that you would start him when there are 11 NBA games on that day? How many of those 4 will you actually use Brandon Miller next week? Now, Miles Bridges, you probably would use him all of those games, but with the way he's playing, maybe not. So that's a decision to make. I would think that in a lot of strong team situations, if you are in the playoffs, second week, finals week, whatever, your team is going to be pretty strong. You won't probably play Brandon Miller at all, maybe 1 game because of the volume schedule. Unless you just spread everything out with other guys around. Meaning there's no point holding. And I can't tell you that for sure. I can tell you he's got 1 more game this week. I can tell you they've got 0 quality games next week, which is terrible. And I can tell you that he's remaining bad and a real drain on efficiency. But only you can see how much you would actually use him. Is it a real 4-game week? Or is it a fake 4-game week where you play him once or twice? That's something you need to look at. What else? Nick Richards, drop him. 4 and 6 in 28 minutes. I don't care. We can add him later. While Bertans being ejected meant that Pokusevski played 28 minutes. He had 3 and 5, and you are not holding him. What about the big fella, Jalen Suggs? Only 25 minutes, but who cares when he goes 16, 4 and 6 with 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 2 dribbles? He has been a revelation this season, I think, from a guy that was like, whoa, is this guy a bust at pick 5? Oh, what's he doing? And maybe you say you wouldn't pick him at pick 5 anymore, but bloody hell, he's been so impressive. So that's good for the Magic. Anthony had 21 and 6 coming off the bench. Cole Anthony, that is. That's good, but I don't trust that at all. Banchero, 13 points. Wendell Carter, 8 and 8. Wendell remains like do I need to roster him? But I can't really read too much into this game because of how much of a blowout it was. Like John Isaac played 8 minutes. So if you streamed him, that's an L. But what can you do? They won this so easily. And if there's someone you're going to keep safe in a game you don't need them, it is John Isaac. Fultz went scoreless. Surely nobody still rosters him. While Wagner had 11 in 24 minutes and his late season slump continued. And then we just got this is how much of a blowout it was. We got 6 minutes of Admiral Schofield, 9 minutes of Mr. Black, 9 minutes of Chuma Okeke. It was a blowout. Yeah, pretty big one, in fact. Good for the Magic for getting themselves into the playoffs. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for anything that you need. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. You've got Google Play Store, Google Assistant, and Google Maps built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that you can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style, tow bigger and explore further in your new ride, the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go and find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. All right, let's go to the next one. In Brooklyn, it was the New Orleans Pelicans taking on the Brooklyn Nets. We did have a lineup change here because Herbalife Jones returned for the Pelicans, so he started. Trey Murphy moved back to the bench. I don't think there's any real surprise in that one whatsoever. That's what they've been doing all season. That's what they will continue to do, I would guess, the rest of this season, at least. The Pelicans win it 104-91 against the Nets, and we talked about Zion on the Fantasy Trend show earlier today and saying he'd been flying, and he was still very good here. 28, 7-4, 69% shooting, and I don't know if this is real, but he hit his free throws again. He's hitting them. I think he's at 80% now over the last 2 weeks. If he's hitting free throws and his efficiency is back to class-leading Google exclusive style, yeah. This is a top 10 player at the moment. It just is. Larry Nance. Oh, yeah. 28 minutes, 13 and 10. I don't think that we need to must add him, but they do have 3 games in 4 nights while nobody else does, so maybe you do. The only reason you wouldn't drop Jonas Valanciunas is because of the schedule, but there's nothing about what Valanciunas does that suggests a 10 or 12 team hold. 17 minutes, 8 and 7. Ingram had 11, 4 and 6, a little bit disappointing, while CJ had an okay game, 16, 1 and 5 with 4 threes, and Herb Jones back in business with 3 blocks, 11 points and 2 triples. Trey Murphy struggled, 10, 8 and 3. We know what it is with Trey. The shots just need to go in, 31% shooting only, and that meant decreased output. We're still holding him. They've got a great schedule. You hold Herb, they've got a great schedule. Valanciunas is the iffy one to me. Like, I don't know that those extra 3 games in 4 nights to end the week make it absolutely a must, but it's the only reason I would give it pause. For the Nets, Day'Ron Sharpe played 24 minutes. He had 8, 17 with 2 blocks. That's very interesting, isn't it? Claxton got 22 minutes in this one, and it wasn't necessarily a fouls thing. They just went with Sharpe. Claxton's an unrestricted free agent this offseason, so Day'Ron's a guy, especially in dynasty formats, you just keep an eye on. I don't know what the story is or what their plans are with Claxton, but Sharpe's got some things. Cam Thomas did Cam Thomasy things, 25 points, not anything else. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 42%, but good from the free throw line. And Schroeder had 12, 2 and 4 for old Dennis. Now, Dennis Schroeder is a guy that, it needs so much to get you good value, and he doesn't get it enough. 12, 2 and 5 is fine. You probably don't want to drop it, but it's nothing exciting. And I think that's just been the way it is most of the time. Mikal Bridges, the stink fest continues. He can't hit free throws either now. 15 points, 2 steals, 36% from the field, 3 of 6 from the line. He's actually just dreadful. And Cam Johnson, 10 points in 22 minutes. I think you drop Cam Johnson. I don't think you drop Mikal Bridges, but when do we draw the line? When do we pull the trigger? Because he's 150th over the last 2 weeks. I see no indications of anything getting better. Honestly, the only reason that he's playing, I think, is because of this fake streak. And I say fake for the very reason that there's at least 2 or 3 of those games in there where he checks in, plays 5 minutes and leaves. Right, to keep it going. And in the end, for as good as whatever you think it is, it's actually doing him and his team harm that he keeps playing. Because he's very much not right. Something is very off. Here's a question. Do you think Mikal Bridges is on this team next season? Think he requests a trade? Because they obviously won't trade him unless you give them your left testicle. They don't want anything. He's the greatest thing in the world. The old goose that lays the golden egg, Mikal Bridges. Can't get rid of him for anything. What if he asks out, though? I'd keep an eye on that. Yeah, just keep an eye on it, because maybe he's physically injured. Maybe he's bad. I don't think he's bad, but he's not as good as what they thought he was. But also, maybe he's just completely disengaged from the team. That is another possibility that I don't think we can completely rule out. Might as well go straight into the next one. The Dallas Mavericks over the Spurs. 113-107 is your final score here in this one. The Spurs kept it close, which is great. Able to put up some okay numbers, but overall some weird performances in this one. We'll start with Doncic. We know that my problem with drafting Luka Doncic at the start of the season was there was a 2-game week, which if you use my schedule, it would be grand final week, which is right now. And Luka had a triple-double, 18 points on 22% shooting on 22 attempts is rough, man. 18, 10, and 16 is fine as a game. Like, it's not terrible, but that's some real rough shooting and real bad field goal percentage. And we'll say, I'm very, very interested to see what the overall value of Luka and Kyrie is at the end of this week with only 2 games on. Like, where do they rank for the week in totals? I'm very interested to see it. Kyrie was much better, 28-7 with 2 steals on 62%. While Gafford got kicked in the dick early on, he went to the locker room, came straight back. He ended up playing 24 minutes, and he's sort of settling into solid numbers. Not like those insane numbers, but 13-8, a steal, a block, 71%. Really solid. Lively, only 16 minutes, 12-5 for Derek. He did play well early on. Would have liked a few more minutes. We obviously can't be rostering him with 12 games. With one more game this week. With Gafford, you got to consider, if I'm in a league that finishes this week, I don't know that I hold Gafford with only one more game. That's tough. I definitely don't hold PJ Washington.
Get that garbage out of here.
8 points, 34 minutes, 38%. Now, I said I definitely don't hold, but he does play again Thursday, so I guess you could, but you might be able to use that spot over the next 5 days to just get some more value in. You've got the Pelicans who are going to play those 3 more games for the rest of the week. Or if you've got multiple ads, you can turn 5 days worth of games into 5 games. Rather than holding on to whatever this is that PJ Washington does. Tim Hardaway had 5 points. What a downturn he has had after a hot start to the year. And Exum played 28 minutes with Josh Green out. He ended up with 16 points and 4 threes. Dante, we don't really need to look at him in fantasy, but that's a good game. For the Spurs, Wembanyama didn't shoot well. In fact, he shot horribly, 23%. Both him and Luka, just dreadful field goal percentage impacts. But Wemby still had 12 and 11 with 6 blocks. Trey Jones had 22, 3 and 9 on 73% shooting. It's been a weird season for Trey Jones as well. Unrostable for that first 5 weeks coming off the bench. Got hot, started, held the starting job, got ice cold, kept the starting job, and now he's back hot again. And I love that we're getting big minutes from Devin Vassell every game. 36 minutes again, 19 and 6. What about the old horse, Keldon Johnson? Well, we went back to 28 minutes, and he put up an okay number. 14, 6 and 2. That's fine. It's not must roster. It's fine to roster. It's on the fringes there. While Sohan, 13, 10 and 6 is great as counting stats. But 27% and then 2 or 4 from the line, it's horrific. He's so bad at those numbers, and it's unpredictable when it's going to be there. Malaka Branham had 11 points. He actually missed a free throw, which he's usually good at, while Bubble Champagne had 6 points in 20 minutes. A lot of the same stuff, honestly, for this Spurs team. Not huge takeaways from it, just good that they were keeping it close, and Vic was able to put up some pretty strong numbers there. All right, the final game of the day. The Denver Nuggets, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Naz Reid was out. He'd been starting in place of Rudy Gobert, who was also out. So they went super small. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker did, in fact, get the start for Minnesota. And this game, you'd think, would have been a blowout. But no, it was not. It was kept relatively close, in fact. The Nuggets do win, 115-112 in the end. But a real fighting effort from the Wolves. Let's talk Denver. Jokic missed his first few shots and ended up with a weird line. Like, it's good, but 35 and 16 with only 2 assists. He was 4 of 6 from the line. He was great from the field, but had no steals and blocks. The headmaster, Jamal Murray, had 18, 4 and 11 with 2 steals. Michael Ponder had 26 with 4 triples, not much else, but that's still really efficient. Old mate, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, what do you reckon he did? Well, he had 2 steals and he had 2 threes and didn't do anything else. And Aaron Gordon had 14 and 11 and was actually pretty efficient from both the field and from the line. And their bench, as usual, did nothing. They're the most boring team in fantasy. For the Wolves, there's no Gobert, there's no Rude, there's no Rick Rude, obviously. There's no Naz Reid either. There's no Towns. So like I said, they started Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He played 37 minutes, and after yesterday's stream being fantastic, he had 4 points in 37 minutes. He had 3 assists and 29% shooting, and like we detailed on the Daily Look Ahead show today, the Wolves now have a 2-game in 7 night schedule starting, which is obviously quite poor, and Alexander-Walker is really benefiting from both Gobert and Reed being out. Jaden McDaniels, now he's been trash for a long period of time. This great game brings him up to 216th over the last 2 weeks, but I'll give him credit. This is fantastic. 26 and 6, 4 triples, 2 blocks, 69% shooting, played 38 minutes, went bananas in the fourth quarter. I don't care. I'm not adding him. You won't get a scenario where Gobert and Reed are out every game moving forward. They've got a terrible schedule, and he has never proven it to me that he can do this long term. Edwards has. Goose had 30 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals. 50% from the field, 50 from the line on 2 attempts is not nice, but overall good numbers there. And Kyle Anderson got like 2 fouls in about 2 minutes guarding Jokic at the start of the game. He ended up with only 26 minutes. He had 12, 3, and 4, 1 steal and 2 blocks, and continues to bring us the most Kyle Anderson lines every time that he Kyle Andersons. Is that useful? Sure. Does it mean you have to hold through gaps in schedules? Absolutely not. While Luka Garza had 11 and 6 in 22 minutes, shot 36%, had 2 steals. That's like, what more could you ask for if you had have tried Garza in a very deep league or in a DFS scenario, but he's not going to play on most nights. So as a general rule, you can just go ahead and ignore that. Yeah, ignore it. That's the 5 games. We're done. That was easy. Let's go through and look at the lines of the night. Now we'll start with the monstrous line of the night, the best performance of the day. This one, it was relatively clear-cut today. It does go to the man who took advantage of the Wizards. It is Jalen Green, 42 points, 10 rebounds. He hits 7 triples. Pretty easy against whatever's going on with that defense over there in Washington. The next one we look at is the waiver wire line of the night, the best performance from a guy available everywhere, and this guy is not quite available everywhere. He's been jumped on in a few spots. Justin Champagnie, who had 16 points and 8 rebounds, coming off the bench. There's a lot that has to develop there in Washington. What happens with Kuzma? What happens with Avdia? Does he come off the bench behind Kispert? I don't know. I don't mind an ad of him. It's going to be a little bit up and down. There's so many weird guys that could jump into minutes, like Jules Bernard, for example. And what happens if Avdia does return or Kispert gets all the minutes? Who knows? It's very up in the air, but this was a very, very good game. The young gun of the night, despite the poor shooting, he does sneak in. He does get it just, mainly because he had 6 blocks and 11 rebounds. But the big fella, Victor Wembanyama, 12, 11, and 6 blocks for Wemby on a poor shooting night. But overall, he's awesome. And then the dud of the night, who's the most highly rostered player? Well, not most highly rostered, a highly rostered player who stunk. We're going to go to Grant Williams. He stinks this much that the Hornets didn't even bother to update their media guide with a photo of him in his new uniform, so I had to use the Dallas one. 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. I don't know if it says more about Grant Williams or it does about Charlotte and how lazy they are to not update their player photos section on the media guide on the NBA website. I would say, given their lack of attention to detail on many other things, it's probably a Charlotte thing more than anything else. Let's look at the top 6 players for the day. As you know, the number 1 guy already, we've already mentioned him. He is Jalen Green. He was number 1, followed by Big Chungus, Nikola Jokic slid in at 2, Jalen Suggs at 3, Zion at 4, Trey Jones at 5, yes, and Anthony Edwards at 6. Your top 6 under 50% rostered players, Champagnie at number 1. That's the Washington one. Justin, again, don't mind an ad. It's going to be a little bit up and down, but I don't mind it. Cole Anthony, not interested. Jock Landale, 7 blocks, fantastic, but still under 20 minutes, so that's unreliable. Rashawn Holmes, low upside, solid enough, but if Bagley's back, he's not going to be worth it. Larry Nance, great schedule. Not going to be as good as today, but that's not a bad option to have a look at. And then Day'Ron Sharpe, more minutes than Claxton today. Not sure how reliable that is, but we definitely watch it really closely. The top 6 players in Yahoo Points Leagues today, number 1, Jalen Green, followed by Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and Victor Wembanyama. So what are some end-of-day takeaways? Again, take that look at Justin Champagnie and Rashawn Holmes if you want, but there's so much uncertainty with that Wizards team. Keep an eye on Jared Butler there as well. Keep an eye on the sandwich, Patrick Baldwin Jr. If you're looking for steals, Keon Ellis. The Kings have a back-to-back. Really good numbers there. Steals and blocks. Not much else, but he's going to start probably rest of season. Grant Williams is a drop, and I wrote there the shoulder boys. Your dislocated guys, Julius Randle and Kevin Huerter. I don't think you need to hold on to those guys. I don't think Randall's coming back anytime soon, and I think Huerter might be done for the year. And that is the end of a very short well, not, is it very short? I don't know. We'll find out when I put it all together, but that is the end of the show. There were just the 5 games on, so we covered that. So give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Breaking news. The Memphis Grizzlies have signed a bloke that I've literally never heard of, Malzinha Pereira, on a 10-day contract. Adjust your rosters as needed.